Hey folks, welcome back to another Poem Massive video, and yeah, again, throughout the end of the month, let's go over the very cringe and unbearable task of doing tier lists again. Although you guys enjoy it, I think it's kind of cringe. You guys like it, so whatever. Anyways, so some changes here, right? First of all, the big change is after you guys been asking for it for like 3-4 months now, I finally gave in, and I will break up the second tier into 2 tiers. Although, fair warning, a lot of you might not like it. I don't like it, so be careful what you ask for. I guess. Anyways, so yeah, again, as usual, shout outs to the folks who made this one, right, with me. So we can shout out to Runner, Jerub, Joe, Ropal, right? I think that's everyone. Hopefully Ray. Okay. So anyways, let's get into this again. As usual, this is all based on 5x5 2020 EX if they have an EX, right? At their best, and mainly on master mode. But also doesn't mean that if this thing can clear master mode, it deserves a higher tier. No, basically everything in this game can clear 1.5k master mode, right? But just in terms of how well they perform, right? And then secondary would be maybe legendary arena, and then like full force battles, and then Valvilla, right? Okay. Let's get into this then. So, starting from the top, let's just do one of each here. Oh, also, like these, like I'm not gonna go over these for like the billionth time in a row. I mean, they never really change much. They're the gridless ones. I mean, it is what it is. They're probably all gonna get replaced soon by the BP sync pairs as well, which are free. So, anyways, yeah, obviously, Leon's still top tier, right? This is probably the best striker in the game overall, right? I wouldn't say probably, it is, right? Highest damage, highest DPS, right? Has fantastic team buffs, right? And yeah, I don't know, big damage. I mean, this is a damage dealer tier list, so obviously deserves a spot there. Moving on, let's put something in the second tier. Dragonite, right? A lot of people don't like Dragonite because, you know, the kid's boring, whatever. This guy's no multipliers, whatever, this and that. However, it does not matter. He is a very simple and very simple and devastating unit. He does 1 billion damage with Hyper Beam, and that is very good. On top of having, you know, potions for your team as well, you know, if you need that. So yeah, there's probably well, maybe not probably, is pretty much the strongest dragon damage dealing unit in the game, right? Still. So, moving on, next. I don't want to do this yet. You know what? I'm gonna chicken out and just put out a less controversial one. Where's Sharpedo? Alright, Sharpedo next here. Okay, so we did downgrade Sharpedo. Sharpedo, while still being fine, is sort of not on the level of the units in the tier above as much anymore, right? Obviously still fantastic speed, solid damage, but not anything crazy, right? Especially under rain. The defense debuffs are really nice. I do like that, right? There really isn't any huge knock on Sharpedo, right? Other than the fact that he just doesn't fit on the optimal rain team anymore, which is kind of sad. But again, not the biggest deal in the world. But yeah, definitely, if we were to split the second tier, Sharpedo is unfortunately going down, right? Moving on to next tier, average damage dealers. Houndoom is a fantastic damage dealer. In fact, it has like really great numbers on its max Star Pulse. However, max Star Pulse, not the way to go, right? Houndoom doesn't have the best team comps, unless you run with Serena. Then I mean, what can you do? But then again, on the other hand, you run anything with Serena, it's going to be a very busted team because Serena's is incredible, right? But It does have some awkward team comps overall, right? But it's still really, really good, right? Still, Houndoom's still really good. Really isn't much negative to say about Houndoom. Also has a fun bite, flinch, poison build. Which could give an argument to say is Houndoom, you know, more so in the hybrids tier now instead of like straight up damage dealer, maybe, but regardless, he has more use for damage dealing though still, right? Next we've got what should we put in there next? Maybe let's do Feraligatr, I guess, right? Feraligatr, while not being very impressive as a water type unit, right, it's still a solid damage dealer overall, right? Because it's a water type unit. You can't go wrong with water type units in this game. Water and fire type units are very busted because of weather, right? And how weather works in this game, how the multipliers work, all that stuff, right? So even though he's clearly the worst, I'd say, you know, gridded water type damage dealer. I think unless I'm missing anyone, he's still really, really good, right? So can't do much about that, I guess. Let's see. Moving on. What else we got next here? Probably something like Gallade maybe. Gallade just doesn't do too much damage, right? Its damage is on like ungridded units levels almost. Good defenses, right? Still a okay-ish secondary damage dealer. It's just that nowadays secondary damage dealers are just so much better than where Gallade is at, right? Unfortunately. So there's that. Anyways, let's just keep going, I guess, from left to right. Alder Volcarona is still easily top tier, right? Hyper Beam, big damage. Could keep up gauges relatively well if you want to run a secondary striker, right? Or run Alder as the secondary striker, whatever. So that's obviously very, very valuable. And yeah, I don't know, it's got some good stuff in its grid. It's big damage. I don't know what else to say. All right, it's pretty straightforward. Serena, I'd say probably still here, right? Awkward kit, I'd say. Awkward kit, awkward team comp fits. But if you need a unit to do some side chip damage, even if you don't max out with all the Serena's multiplier, because it's really hard, right? You don't really exactly need to max them all out just to do some good damage, so it's always nice to have that there. And also the sync nuke plus potential is really, it's still there, right? So it's, and plus the stop hitting yourself 5 on AoE Confusion is nice. It's not anything crazy because Confusion's not like super crazy in this game, but it's still an option to have, I guess, right? Moving on, Palkia is still top tier, right? This guy has Blast Burn, red Blast Burn levels of damage on Hydro Pump. Is the most optimal unit on the Rain team, obviously, right? Could also do some Dragon damage, but I mean, no one really does that though. His Dragon type damage is not great. But yeah, big damage. What can you do? Lusamine probably still in the average damage deals category, right? Very, 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 very fast. Solid secondary damage dealer, although again there are better ones in terms of damage wise, right? Does have coverage with both ice or bug, which is nice, although you generally want to use ice. And yeah, I don't know, very, very fast, very fast. Next we got Typhlosion. Probably better than average. Probably wanted to get an EX, although Typhlosion EX is probably, or Ethan EX, probably one of the worst in the game, unfortunately, because first of all, he doesn't have any multipliers on his sync, and second of all, there are so many units that you run him on, right? It's on teams that need to sync before him, right? Whether you're running Ethan with Ho-Oh, you want to sync with Ho, right? You're running Ethan with Meganium, you want to sync with Meganium. You're running Ethan with Red Leon, you want to sync with Red Leon, right? There's no chance to sync with Ethan, so his EX is basically, it's pretty bad, right? Moving on, we've got Leavanny. Borderline, honestly, did get an EX. The damage still isn't too crazy, I'd say. And again, the Sync Nuke, while being pretty powerful, is not very easy to achieve, right? Team comps are slightly awkward, although you can, or if you're focusing a team on Leavanny, right? But you can slide Leavanny into other teams, which is nice, right? I definitely do like Leavanny's playstyles, actually. I think Leavanny's pretty underrated, right? So, anyways, moving on. Raichu is probably a bit below average. Sync Nuke is really good, right? By the way, I'm pretty sure Raichu Sync Nuke does more than N's and Elisa's, right? However, unfortunately, How's Discharge is so bad. Discharge is so bad, right? Man, if only like How got like Thunder or something, would have been so much better. But it's still solid. Still solid, right? Moving on. Decidueye, probably slightly below average still. This thing does no damage. This thing's damage is atrocious. You can't fit it on teams as a secondary damage dealer, right? If you get lucky with the with the regen or move gauge passive thing, right? Does have an okay Sync Nuke. It's not like an over the top crazy Sync Nuke, but it's definitely nice, right? It does have some potential in the future if we get like some really good grassy terrain unit, I think. So there's that at least. Moving on, Haxorus is kind of meh, right? I mean, Haxorus just doesn't do too much damage, unfortunately. Nothing else too bad about Haxorus. It just doesn't do too much damage. Moving on, Miss Make is probably here as well. Also, really bad DPS. Yeah, I don't know. It's just DPS is really bad. Mega Charizard X is still up here, right? Good damage overall, pretty consistent, I'd say. Nothing too exciting, though, right? Sceptile, I'd say still above average, right? Decent setup, I'd say. All right, decent setup. Good damage on Leaf Storm. Good damage on the Sync Nuke. A lot of good things about Sceptile. Really fast speed as well. Zekrom, probably still above average damage dealers. It is slightly slow, but it does have ways to sort of make it work, right? And again, the Hilbert grid helped him so much. Running him Luxray. Slight liability is like Luxray. However, I mean, you don't have to run Luxray with him, I guess. But on the other hand, regardless, it's still really good. And I'm not saying like, in terms of like Luxray as a unit. Luxray as a unit is still really good. It's just in comparison to other terrain weather setters like Ho-Oh or May or Bianca, right? Luxray does lack a bit of a punch, unfortunately, himself. Moving on, Gallade. This was slightly contested in terms of if we're going to move him down or not. We just decided not to move him down because he still does his job very well, right? Really great damage dealer. And, just really easy to use. Not bad in Battle Villa, too, with the crit buffs, all that stuff, free crit buffs. But yeah, Gallade's still good. Moving on, Emboar. Probably still in average. Got the 6R EX, which it really wanted, right? That definitely helped it a lot. Does it help it move past this? Probably not. But definitely a good buff for Hilda there, right? Moving on. Zacian. Unfortunately, I have to move Zacian down. Pains me to do this because I love using Zacian, right? I think it's a really fun unit to use. The upsides are really good, I think, right? Very fast with 4-gauge move. However, the downsides are also really bad. The biggest knockout against Zacian, and this is the main reason why I got moved, down. Outside of, you know, you guys wanting us to split the two tiers, or the tier into two, if we didn't split it, it would still be, you know, up that tier. But yeah, the biggest knock on Zacian is Zacian setup's way too slow, way too slow of setup, right? You need the opponent sync, and if the opponent doesn't sync, you do not do as much. You do not do nearly as much damage. Zacian's damage is pretty bad for 4-gauge move user, right? Pretty bad if the opponent doesn't sync. Obviously, if the opponent syncs, Zacian goes beast mode. Unfortunately, you're gonna either have to wait, you know, 6 turns, 6, 7 turns, 7, 8 turns before your opponent syncs to get that damage buff, or you'd have to choose master mode parameters that decrease the opponent's sync move countdown, which is very dangerous. Very dangerous thing to do, right? So, yeah, it does suffer from that. Next one. Oh, no. I love Kommo-o. I love using Kommo-o. I absolutely love using Kommo-o. But it is not on the tier of the likes of Zacian, Dragonite, even Gallade, or Sirfetch'd. Here's the issue with Kommo-o. Here's the issue with Kommo-o. First of all, one of the slowest 4-gauge move users. I'm not sure if it's the slowest, but it's down there, right? It's bottom 3 for sure. Extremely slow 4-gauge move user. Every time it uses Clanging skill, it debuffs its defense. And it's an AoE unit. AoE units, again, some can work. Some can definitely work, right? They're definitely good AoE units. Maze Muddy Waters, fine, right? Charizard's or Red's Heat Wave is fine. Clanging skills is not, right? It does not do nearly enough damage to warrant it, you know, the AoE thing. And the thing with AoE is just not meta right now. AoE is not very good for the meta. AoE could be good in the future if there's some mode that makes it so that the total damage output per turn is much better, right? But at the moment, the strategies are basically focused and fixated on taking out the middle unit as fast as possible. Or if you want to deny turns, you could do that as well, right? Which AoE units are terrible of, because you only do half your damage, right? You only do 50% of your damage instead of 100%. And that's just just straight up a killer. That's just straight up a killer, right? And again, the damage is just not nearly enough to compensate. And you have all the downsides, the slow speed, the defense debuffs every time. Again, I love using the unit. It's really fun. High 5-2 is really fun to use. Actually, kind of, the trainer moves actually pretty funny as well to use time to time. But it's just not fit for this meta at the moment, right? So, unfortunate. Kingdra's not great. It has a very high damage cap. The team comps are terrible, right? Team comps are terrible. Gyarados still easily, yeah, above average damage dealers. People don't focus on Gyarados a lot because it's mostly the same reason as Lance, except less because he's a seasonal unit and no one cares about him. But he's fantastic, right? I mean, there's nothing bad to say about him. Yeah, meta-wise, right? I mean, you could say a lot of bad things about him. This guy's boring. Okay, whatever, right? But you can't deny how powerful he is in terms of just straight up damage-wise, right? And he also has some really fun team comps you could run as well. So there's that. Moving on, Zebstrika, probably still average, right? A lot of people compare Zebstrika to Emboar, which is fine, I guess, right? I'd say Emboar probably has better team comps. Zebstrika is much faster, and Zebstrika does have guaranteed crit on the AoE sinks, which is nice, right? Also, Emboar kills herself less fast, I guess. So there's that as well. But yeah, they're still basically around that level. Empoleon, probably still here as well, right? Great sync, especially with 6REX right now, right? Great AoE sync nuke. However, Bubble Beam / Bubble is just an absolute pain, right? Just does no DPS whatsoever. No DPS, unfortunately. Yeah. Zaju probably a bit below average. It's just a Musharna, but like much worse because Musharna does like a billion other things that Zod doesn't do, on top of doing much more damage. But Stored Power is a very good move, right? So there's, you know, can't really go wrong with Xatu if you need a Psychic type damage healer, I guess, right, for the most part. Moving on, Drifblim's not very great. A lot of people say, oh, well, the Drifblim, did you not see the 1v3, you know, 1.5 game Master Modes? Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? Why? I'm not ranking on how limited you could make yourself while still clearing modes. I'm ranking it on, at its best, how great it could be. And at Drifblim's best, there's tons of units that are better than him, right? Drifblim is better than most units when he's working by himself, right? When you're trying to do your best, do not do your best, right? However, in 3-unit team comps, this thing actively hurts your team. If you choose to use Phantom Force, which is why it excels when it's by itself, is because of Phantom Force, right? But if you use Phantom Force while you're on a team, you're just hurting your team. You're hurting your team for no reason. You're delaying your sync move, right? It directly conflicts with Morty's biggest strength, which is its really solid sync nuke, right? Because Phantom Force is a 2-turn move that only gives you 1-turn move sync move countdown, right? And then if you use Shadow Ball, it's just way too weak, unfortunately. Moving on, Lucario. Lucario probably still here as well. Lucario's fine. I mean, solid damage, I guess. Can't really take a hit, unfortunately, but okay damage for what it's worth. Bravier probably still here as well. I mean, I'm like, the memes aren't even funny anymore. This guy's just sad. Solgaleo's okay. Borderline down here, but Solgaleo is getting grid soon, so watch Solgaleo shoot up hopefully next month, right? We're rooting for you, Solgaleo. Well, let's go Solgaleo, right? Lycanroc, still slightly below average. Good sync nuke, bad everything else. Literally everything else. Is there anything else good about Lycanroc outside of sync nuke? The speed buff every crit is nice, I guess, right? But outside of that, everything is just not good. But it gets saved by the sync nuke, you know, solid sync nuke. Absolute terrible DPS. Cannot take a special hit, right? But hey, it's a rock type. But we're not ranking based on it, right? It's not like, oh, you're the best rock type we have, so we're gonna move you up here. No, we're not doing that. Next, we got Jigglypuff. Probably still here. I mean, it's fine. Has a good team with Serena. Again, everyone is a good team with Serena. Well, almost everyone. Because, I mean, there are, like, units that, like, guarantee statuses, which are not as good, but, like, you know, most units are very good with Serena. But, yeah, a lot of synergy with Serena, which is nice. Rayquaza, probably move it down one a bit, right? Another, still really good. But it's just not on the level of, say, Zekrom, right? Or Dragonite. So that's why it's moved down a bit. It's probably still overall more useful than Kommo-o, unfortunately. But I don't see it being as good to be up there anymore, unfortunately. If we were to split the tiers, right? Blue, we also argued about Blue a bit as well, if he was going to drop. End up not dropping it, because it still has, like, really overall solid stats, right? The Blue's setup is terrible. It's really terrible, but, I mean, the end results are good, right? It's not, like, that bad. The setup's not that bad, but you do get some really solid end results in terms of the either damage output or some other more, I guess, intangible things, right? In terms of its defense, speed, all that stuff. Gardevoir is still really good, right? Yeah, nothing bad to say about it. It is a bit slow, I guess, but I mean, Zekrom's here, so okay, right? Garchomp. Oh, I swear, I love Cynthia. I'm a huge Cynthia fan. I love Cynthia. She's great. I love Cynthia, right? Do not kill me for this. I'm so scared. Please. But unfortunately, as much as it pains me to say this, Cynthia has to drop one. She's just not as good anymore. She's just not, right? She just gets, you know, power crept by so many units at this point. Again, she still does solid damage on the Earthquake. But on the other hand, it's just not enough anymore for all her downsides. She does what, 600k Earthquakes, which is, again, good. But there's so many units that could do easily 600k with much better team comps, much better upsides, much more flexibility to add in a secondary, you know, another 400, 500k damage dealer on top of their 600k. And Garchomp just doesn't have it. Like, the best you could do is, like, tank with Garchomp and then slot into, like, a Lycanroc, which, again, we just mentioned before, Lycanroc's DPS is terrible, right? Cynthia suffers from a lot of things, unfortunately. The first thing is Acerola is not that great. Acerola is probably the weakest gridded terrain and / weather unit. Yeah, Acerola fantastic in Legendary Arena, not so much elsewhere. Again, Musharna can tank, helps your team with gauge, deals immense amount of damage, right? Luxray can tank. The paralysis is very helpful, right? For a lot of electro type units. Flinch is nice, but again, Acer also has flinch, right? And Luxray can do some damage if you really want. It's just slightly risky. Like, you're trying to tank, don't use moves with recoil when you're trying to tank. But yeah, there's that. Ho-Oh, incredible damage dealer, right? Meganium, fantastic, you know, buffer. May, incredible damage dealer, fantastic sync nuke, can tank, right? Acerola has just none of that, right? As a 1-gauge spam move, which is okay, that's nice. You can't tank at all, right? You can't do damage, and your buffs are very inconsistent, right? You get guaranteed +1 per Sandstorm, and it's not like you're going to be spamming those 2 Sandstorms in a row to get attack up. You need to make sure you have more Sandstorm for later on. And then the crit buff is random, right? The crit buff is RNG, unlike Meganium, which is more guaranteed. So, first of all, Garchomp does suffer from its partner, which is sad. Second of all, Garchomp also another victim of AoE, which again, the AoE damage, solid, right? It's just not enough to overlook all the other downsides of both AoE and herself as a unit, right? Are there any upsides? Of course, there's a lot. There's a lot of upsides to Garchomp, right? It's very fast, solid defenses for a striker, right? It's Cynthia. Everyone loves Cynthia, right? But again, please don't kill me for this, but I really wanted to keep them together in that one tier, right? Merge them back into that one tier. Everyone's happy, but folks wanted me to split these tiers, and honestly, she was one of the first ones off the list. I'm sorry. I really am. I'm afraid of Pokemon fans. They do have a bit of a reputation. All right, moving on. Mewtwo is just below average. Again, like Solgaleo, hopefully gets better with the grid, but at the moment just does like no damage. Good speed though. Moving on. Infirmary's probably still here as well. Can't take a hit, unfortunately. Okay-ish damage, but then again, you know, a lot of fire types that you do good damage there. All right, out there. Dugong got better. Dugong definitely got better, I'd say, right? Kyurem helped Dugong a lot, made Dugong much more relevant. So that's our first big change here. Well, outside of this tier, right? But yeah, Dugong definitely got better with Kyurem. All right, great stuff. It helps Kyurem with the speed downs. Kyurem helps Dugong with the free Synergy 16s. Although I do think the free Synergy 16 thing is slightly overrated, but Freeze is just not that great in this game, right? But still very, very good, right? Of an upgrade. Morpeko is still easily top tier, right? A 2 gauge, really fast secondary damage healer with needs almost no help in terms of setup, right? Still has the highest sync nuke damage of the whole game against super effective units, right? And just an absolute, you know, nuke on a 2 gauge move is like, this is the one unit everyone is like asking for, like, to put on their teams, right? If you have an empty slot for a unit, you slap this thing in. It just obliterates, right? And then the last one before we go into the new units is Mightyna. Mightyna, unfortunately, we had to drop one. It's still very, very, very good, right? The standard is just slightly higher now, and since we split the second tier into 2, it seems like it could be justified to move Mightyna down a bit, right? Mightyna's damage is just not as incredible, right? Again, still a really, really great secondary damage healer, but again, you're competing with the likes of Marnie, you're competing with the likes of like Alder, right? Which does that, but like much better, right? Unfortunately. But it's still good, right? Great sync nuke. Defense down is always nice to see. They're slightly unfortunate to get max damage. You have to run double edge, which is not a good move, unfortunately, right? So anyways, let's pick up some of the new ones over here. So I don't know why I didn't put them in earlier, but all right, Duraludon is in second tier. The move gauge thing is fantastic with Duraludon. Has 2 great coverage moves, right, with Razor Shell and Jawlock. Unfortunately, it's not on the optimal water team or rain team, whatever you want to call it. But despite that, it's still very, 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 very good, right? Very, very good. Big damage on the Razor Shell, solid damage on your sync nuke as well, right? Well, not more than solid damage, very, very good solid, very, very good damage on your sync nukes. Although the sync nuke setup is slightly wonky, but great unit overall. Great unit overall. I think it has good defenses too, right? Something like that. Wait, did I just call it Duraludon? Dreadnought. I mean Dreadnought, not Duraludon. This is Duraludon. I'm sorry, guys. It's 2 in the morning here. All right, Duraludon. Duraludon, big damage, right? Kind of like Zekrom. However, I don't think it's as good as Zekrom. All right. It is, well, first of all, very, very slow and doesn't have any of the help that Zekrom gets with its gauge management, unfortunately. You can run it in Sam, but again, Acerola, not that great. You could run it with, you know, Zacian, but it's not like the most consistent team in terms of gauge just because of how slow Duraludon is. But, I mean, it does big damage, really, really big damage, so can't really move it that much lower, right? So, yeah. Kyurem. Oh, yeah, we put Kyurem in the hybrid one. Although Kyurem could legitimately be in the striker tier list as well, because it's a great striker. Sirfetch'd we probably put in above average damage healer as well, right? Even though, you know, it doesn't have the best fighting type DPS, right? It's a solid DPS. The setup is like fantastically easy and fast, right? It has speed buffs, which is always nice. Has sync nuke, which is great. 4 gauge move, secretly a 3 gauge move since you get a gauge back every time you use it, right? Guaranteed. So Sirfetch'd is good. Sirfetch'd is good. So anyways, that's me with this one. I guess hope you guys enjoyed. Let me guys in the comments down below. Like and enjoy this video, subscribe to my channel for some more Palm Mouse's content. Have fun fighting each other in the comment section. And I apologize again for moving Cynthia down. I love Cynthia. I swear to God, I love Cynthia. But it's not about who I like, unfortunately. Not about who I like. Oh, I forgot to put Swampert in here. But yeah, Swampert's in here. Just pretend. So, here we go. Don't have Mega Swampert, but Swampert's in here. Probably move it down from the hybrid list. But yeah, the rule of if it's top tier in both tier lists, we're gonna put them both there just to pay respects. But yeah, Swampert very good. Big damage, huge nuke. Good at everything, basically. All right, have fun.